Aloha and welcome to the Hawaii Pacific Gerontological Society's May webinar. My name is Mapuana Ta'amu and I am one of the board members of HPGS and chairperson for these webinars. I'd like to introduce the chat box included with the Zoom app. If you move your cursor around your screen, you should see an icon of a chat bubble with the word chat under it. Click the chat icon and you will enter the chat room where you are able to submit questions or comments throughout this presentation. Questions will be gathered throughout the presentation and answered at the end. So please feel free to send in your thoughts, questions, and concerns for Dr. Wong regarding the MemorC app. We've also launched a poll, which is right now in progress, and I see that 76% of you folks have voted. Thank you for casting your vote. If you aren't already, please consider becoming a member of HPGS so that you can stay updated and invited. There are various rates for individuals, organizations, and associates. Here are a few benefits you'll receive with our membership. Monthly newsletter where members are welcome to submit articles to be published. We offer free monthly webinars just like this one, and members are eligible to be a speaker. We also have special invitations to general membership meetings, kupuna-related events and workshops, and we're very proud to offer scholarships to help anyone of any age pursuing education in the field of gerontology. For more information, please visit hpgs.org. To become a member, head over to our website, hpgs.org, and in the top right corner, click on the membership tab. Here you'll find more information about our membership benefits. Scroll down and click the link at the bottom, fill out your information and click submit. Following this webinar, it will be uploaded and archived to our website at hpgs.org. From the homepage, hit that webinar tab and you'll be redirected to our currently offered, upcoming, and past webinars. This webinar will be added to our website no later than 1 week after today. Please feel free to share this webinar with your friends or family. All right, let's get down to business. We have gathered here today to talk about the MemorC app. Thank you to those of you who have submitted personal questions that you have about the app. We will get to those towards the end of this webinar. If you have any other questions, do use the chat box to type them in and send it our way. Or you can send a text message to 808-469-5330. Now, I'm sure many of you are family caregivers caring for a loved one with dementia, or a health professional interested in learning more about this new technology. Today, I've invited a special guest who is the founder of this special app. Our speaker today is Dr. Wong. Dr. Warren Wong went to medical school at the University of California at Davis and received his initial internal medicine training at the University of California, San Francisco. He worked as a practicing internist with Kaiser Permanente on Maui and always had an interest in working with older adults. With that passion, he pursued a fellowship in geriatrics at the University of Hawaii and was one of the original fellows in that program. He is currently a clinical professor in the Department of Geriatric Medicine at the University of Hawaii John A. Burns School of Medicine. Dr. Wong spent the majority of his career providing consult care for people with Alzheimer's disease and other dementias. In developing Memories Connect, he felt that memory impairment can be seen as a disability and that Memories Connect can be a useful tool to reinforce memories and strengthen connections. Dr. Wong, thank you for being here today.
Hi, Mapuana. Thanks so much for introducing me. And before I talk about my topic, which is what is the MemorC app all about, I thought it'd be important to talk about why I started this work in the first place and a little bit about my background. And I've heard a little bit about Mapuana and her work with Memory Friends. We had a little chance to talk a little bit, and also happy to have in the room here with me Lena with Attention Plus. Lena and Mapuana, if you have any questions at any time, just feel free to really chip in, so I have somebody to talk with while I'm doing my presentation. But I'll tell you a little bit about my background. So I was a geriatrician at Kaiser for about 30 years, but you know, I did do my training in California, and I'm actually originally from San Francisco. Um, my first role actually as a doctor was at a place called Unlock, and maybe some of you know about it. It's in San Francisco, Chinatown, and Unlock stands for peace and happiness. And that was the original site of what's subsequently been called the PACE program, Program for All-Inclusive Care for the Elderly. And that program provides within one program Medicare services as well as intermediate care services in a comprehensive package that tries to focus on living in the community. But that was a wonderful time in my life, really in live action, gave me a real interest in geriatrics. And then I ended up moving to Hawaii and started working with Kaiser. And I eventually, via working with Kaiser, became familiar with Dr. Blanchette, who many of you know. And I was actually in the second fellowship class. The first fellowship class only had one person in it. So technically, I could say actually I'm the second fellow that actually ever graduated from that program. And I think many of you know Dr. Masaki, who graduated from that program a number of years later. So what ended up happening is that I went to the fellowship program with the goal of starting up the geriatrics program at Kaiser, which I proceeded to do. And that was the majority of my career. One interesting thing that happened then was that, maybe a lot of people don't know this, Kaiser and Halemakua on Maui actually tried to start a PACE program on Maui. And I was very heavily involved in that. That program actually eventually failed after about a year or so, but that's not today's story. That's another story. My main story really relates to the fact that I did have a consultation clinic in which much of the consultations, many of the consultations were for people with Alzheimer's disease. And we would do a comprehensive geriatric assessment, talk with the family, check functional status, cognitive status, check coordination, hygiene. And of course, we would try different medicines. Sometimes we would change medicines, we'd make recommendations. But you know, I think the most valuable thing I did of all was I would talk with patients and I would connect. And even as their memories faded, I would ask about things that the patient still remembered. And I think they appreciated that. And I think the loved ones and caregivers appreciated that too. It's kind of like what I would call a tincture of humanity. And I enjoyed that myself. So that's kind of a long introduction, but I want to get to the biggest why of why I started doing this work. This app is all, and my company, MemorC Connect, is really about how do you support people living with Alzheimer's disease and their caregivers and their loved ones, because it's a pretty difficult journey. And so I'm not going to talk today about, you know, what causes Alzheimer's disease, how do you prevent it, you know, how do you treat it? I think I'm more interested in talking today about, you know, the concept of how does it feel to have Alzheimer's disease? You know, what would it feel like if I started to develop Alzheimer's disease? You know, would I start to forget things on my daily life? Would I, you know, eventually start to get lost driving? And the kinds of feelings of, you know, both denial and then kind of bewilderment that would go with that. And then maybe over a period of time, I would even forget that I'd ever been a doctor and what my career was all about. But then you know, as the journey goes on, you know, it'd be a really loss to forget some of the more important things, you know, like who my mother was, what her journey to the United States was all about. And then, of course, forgetting about the most important people in my own life. And then over a period of time, starting to feel that you yourself as a person are starting to disappear. So there's an organization called MemorC that has a series of videos that are really good. It's a good website to go to, and talks about the way people feel. And, you know, it's frightening. You feel abandoned. And I think the people in this audience know a little bit about what that's like for their patients. A lot of people feel uncomfortable talking with people with Alzheimer's disease, don't know what to say, so don't talk. You know, it's awkward. Or the other thing that happens is just overwhelming sympathy, or this babyizing of talking with people with dementia. And you know, all those things can make a person feel pretty lonely when people don't talk to you like a human being. And there's a pretty well-known book, it's called I'm Still Here, that really gets into some of these issues. So Mapuana was talking with me a little bit about her work with Memory Friends and the PAC, the positive approach to care. And I think that's really important because, you know, there's a real feeling of, as you get into disease, of despair. And there's the disease itself, but it's a little bit different when you add despair to that. And Mapuana was asking me, well, why is there anything about autism here? And there's not a relationship between autism and Alzheimer's disease, but there's kind of a contrast in the way autism is approached versus the way Alzheimer's and dementia is approached. And I think that in autism, there's more of an attempt to see the glass as half full. There's more of an attempt to provide therapies. And I think there's a really important difference because there's an overwhelming, you know, it's called Alzheimer's disease. But when you really think about it, it's a disability as well. It's a cognitive disability. And that's an important distinction because when we think about diseases, we usually think about treating them with medicines. But when you think of something as a disability, then that's when you start to look for therapies and tools. And there's really not enough done about that within Alzheimer's disease. So there's actually really strong evidence that cognitive stimulation actually helps people with Alzheimer's disease. People will remember things better, and the quality of life is improved, and people's mental state in terms of anxiety and depression also improves. But the fact is, when you really look at how much cognitive stimulation is given to people, there's actually not much data about that at all. And the data that exists says that it's probably less than 30 minutes a day. So think about the contrast with autistic children. How much therapy do they get in a day? I can guarantee you it's a lot more. So caregivers really don't have many tools to help them within their caregiving role. No tools for cognitive stimulation. And actually, I noticed, it came upon me that I was watching some kids play with apps on tablets. And I said, you know, and these kids were awfully young, 2 or 3 years old. And I said, you know, could we adapt this tool to be of benefit to people with Alzheimer's disease? So that was kind of the beginning of my journey of creating this app.
Well, that's interesting you talk about using an iPad, because I am actually an RBT, a registered behavioral technician. And what we do at work is we use applied behavioral analysis to work with the children who have autism.
Mhm.
And instead of doing paper pencil math, they use the iPad. And I find that very strange because the kid that I babysit, he has dysgraphia. So he has trouble writing with his hand. He gets frustrated and upset and then acts out in behaviors. So the iPad really works for him. And when I talked to his mom and I tried to push the reason, like, you should use, paper and pencil. It's going back to the olden days. That's how we all need to learn how to write one day or another, but really tailoring to what they can do, the abilities that are left, and reaching that and figuring out a way to continue his academic skills and not so much focusing on why can't he write, was really important. So finding an app for these memory impaired people, it's simple, you don't have to write a sentence. Maybe they can't write anymore. So maybe we can have them touch.
Yeah, that's so wonderful you're pointing that out, Mapuana, because actually when you look at technology support tools for autism, there's actually quite a few.
Yeah.
But when we started looking at the App Store for Alzheimer's disease, there's actually very little.
Mhm.
And the little bit that exists is actually more aimed at caregivers. And it's basically very basic stuff. It's kind of, how do you treat this? How do you manage that? It's basically a little bit like a textbook or a caregiver instruction book within an app. But thanks so much for bringing that point up. And consistent with what you're saying also, Mapuana, actually I've become familiar with the technology community, and a lot of stuff for autistic children is not about writing so much as giving people tasks to do and trying to figure out the task. But the other thing I really did think was important is a tool for cognitive stimulation, but I did really want to get back to the point that most of all, I think the most important point is that Memories Connect is about connection and the loss of connection that can happen as people get this disease. So as a clinician, I actually wasn't really an expert on a lot of these things, but we've done a lot of thinking about it. And we thought that the app really needed to do these things. We already talked about cognitive stimulation, and obviously it needs to be easy to use for a person with dementia. And to really create the connection, it needed to be personalized. I'll talk a little bit about emotional support. It needs to be interactive, and I've seen this a lot in Hawaii, is that people are not living with their parents. And so let's just say you have somebody with cognitive impairment who's far away. How do you stay interactive with that person? And I have more than one friend that's making trips back and forth to the mainland just to see how their parents are doing. And it's not totally satisfying. It just kind of gives you, oh, I went back there and I checked them out. But how do you stay more interactive on a day-to-day basis? How do you make sure that a person's happy on a day-to-day basis? And I'm sure you're familiar with this, is people coming back to Hawaii to kind of check up on their parents to see how they're doing. And just keeping the connection, I think, was really important. And I'll talk a little bit about some more of the other aspects about making it enjoyable. So this is how it works. The app, you upload photos of the person with the memory problem and of people and animals, pets. Ina's got a dog.
I have 2 dogs.
That are important to you. And then those are intermixed with a bunch of random photos. And the person is asked to pick out a photo of the person that they recognize. And one thing that it does is it's gamified. And what gamification means for anybody is that it cannot be too hard. It can't be too hard where you're totally frustrated. And it can't be too easy where you're totally bored. It just needs to be on the right edge of being challenging. And at the same time, not when you get the answer right, you feel good about. So that's what gamification is all about. And that's what we do. So if it's a little bit too hard, we narrow down the number of pictures. If there's too many names, we narrow down the number of names. And that makes it easier.
So what if the game is too easy? Does it level up and make the difficulty even higher?
Yeah, so I'll get into that a little bit.
Cool.
Yeah, it's so as we improve it, it's going to get more and more to the point of just being appropriate for that person. And of course, that's the kind of thing that can be monitored over time.
So would you say that the person with Alzheimer's disease can play the game unattended, or does somebody need to sit next to them?
Yeah, so right now, the way it's designed, if you look at it, it's really for somebody with a middle level of dementia. And the very simple way I put it is, it's for somebody who can look at a magazine and kind of be focused enough to look at the magazine. They may not really be able to remember the content a lot, but they can kind of read the lines and be able to transiently understand that. But right now, the way it's designed, it's not appropriate for the person that, you just put a magazine from and they won't even turn the pages. Mm-hmm. That's the way it's designed now. I think as we further modify it more and more and make it a better and better product, we'll be able to reach more and more levels. But right now, I think that's kind of the sweet spot. And I think, Mapuana, your other question about whether they can do it on their own or with a caregiver, we've had people do it on their own. Okay. But we've also seen some where it's very useful for a caregiver to enact. And so I'll talk about this a little bit later. But we actually have a section for the caregiver that we're developing, and it's to also make the day of the caregiver go better as well, and has continuing information for caregivers. One concept that we haven't really developed yet is this concept of developing a community of connection, where people can stay connected in their community and just feel supported that way. Because of course we all know about, caregiving 36-hour day, and it's really difficult for caregivers. It's very stressful. And, caregivers, are the burden of the task of being a caregiver can lead to depression and actual physical illness. So, yes. So it's kind of this really the basics, it's very obvious, is that people ask, well, does this actually make people's cognition better? Does it make their memory better? And there's a scientific answer and there's a straightforward answer. The scientific answer is that we don't reverse the disease. But the straightforward answer is, Mapuana, if you and I have been emailing back and forth, and I know your name better, then if I had been asked your name a month ago, I said, well, there's a person that's helping me out, but I haven't had much contact with her. But now that I've been emailing back and forth with you a couple of times, it's just reinforcement. True. So we're just reinforcing, and then I think it makes a big difference for a family member. Of course, we all know that the worst thing that a family member can do is say, tell me who I am. Yeah. Tell me who I am. That's very, that can be emotionally traumatizing for a person with Alzheimer's disease. But it points out an underlying desire is that people who are loved hope that they are still remembered. Mm-hmm. So just the reinforcement is this app is all about just reinforcing that, these are the people that you've created in your life, that you've played a very important role in their lives, and this is how to remember them.
I have a question, Dr.
Sure.
Wong. Did you purposely make it so that the visual intake of the information for somebody with Alzheimer's is easier for them to understand than the auditory? Like if someone were to say, who am I? maybe they wouldn't understand the question as much as if they saw the picture of the person and had the time for it to register. Because I've heard that people with dementia have a better understanding visually as the disease progresses than auditory.
Yeah, I think the visual allows them to process at their own speed. And the auditory is, you know, there's the pressures on, and did I hear you correctly, and all this. So I think that does factor into it. So here, this is a very common problem. Where did mom put so-and-so? And this is kind of a game that a person can play. Well, where does this belong? Does the pillow belong on the chair or in the bed or in the dresser? And of course, this can be for all kinds of items. Where do the keys belong? Where does the milk belong? And of course, this can also be made harder and harder, kind of answering your question. So let's just say there's a book, James Bond.
Mm-hmm.
Does that belong in fiction or nonfiction? You know, spy section, or, you know. So it can definitely be made harder as well. This one is, you know, we're working with vocabulary and concepts. So of course this could be made harder as well. This concept of, you know, what kind of flower is this? Is this a hibiscus? Is this a plumeria? Is this an orchid? And it can get even harder than that. Like, you know, for me, I'm always looking at trees and I say, oh, what kind of tree is that? You know, but there's something else here, which is that you see those right above the butterfly. There's those little things that kind of look like coins.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what we've seen, is that people, even with Alzheimer's, they like competition and they like to see themselves rewarded. So part of the game is that when you get something right, you get a coin. And people really seem to react to that. It's kind of pretty deeply embedded us as human beings. Says, oh, I got that right, and I'm being rewarded. So
I also like how when you get something right on the photos, it comes up and it says, great.
yeah.
You know, that feels good too.
Yeah. Now here's just kind of, you know, underneath this very, and you'll notice that the display is very simple. But this is for working with spatial correlation. And this is a non-personalized photo, but people can also include photos from their photo album of places that they've lived, places that they've been, and things like that. And as you can see, this puzzle is very easy. It's got 4 pieces, but it could easily have 8 pieces, and it could easily be not square as well. So getting back to Memories Connect, it's important to be connected. And here, hi, I'm Suzanne, what's your name? You know, that is a simple act of connection. It's saying, hi, my name's Warren. That's a simple act of recognizing that a person exists. And this is a little bit different, but it's also another kind of validation. It's like, you know, when you ask a child, oh, what's your favorite color? Does it matter what the favorite color is? No. The correct answer is not important. What really matters is, oh, you're a person, you have preferences. And I like this photo. Suzanne does not like this photo. It's her eating lunch. And, you know, it's a very simple version of Instagram, isn't it?
True. That's funny.
And it's just kind of sharing life. I like this one because it's a little bit fun, but ask the person, what meal do you like? You know, and what do you like for breakfast? You like pancakes? You like papaya? You like oatmeal? All these things are just saying, what do you like? And then on a deeper level, it's kind of saying, you know, your emotions count. You know, it's kind of like, you know, so the worst thing we can say to a person with Alzheimer's disease is probably said way too often are things like, don't get mad, don't yell, you know, and those are ways of invalidating a person's emotions. So Suzanne says, well, sometimes when I feel sad, I cry. What do you do when you feel sad? And those are all kind of saying, you know, we're all human. So one of the things that was kind of really important was, you know, this is a kind of a good idea, but can seniors actually use an iPad? You know, can they use it? And the answer is yes and no. The no part is it can't be complicated. So when you look at we've done a lot of work with simplifying the screen, nothing distracting. And we've noticed that older people in general have some difficulty with some movements. You know, older people have difficulty with the swiping movement, and they have what we call sticky fingers, which I call the elevator finger, which means that when you press, you just leave your finger on that button. And, you know, this whole concept of clicking or tapping is very difficult for older people in general, not just people with dementia, but older people in general. So we've had to do a lot of the modifications.
Dr. Wong, is there a website which allows one to test drive the app?
Actually, no, but there's something different we can do. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. This is about having fun. And, you know, one really important thing is we had to make the app fun, because there's a very important point. If it's not fun, people aren't going to do it. And there's another really important point is people with Alzheimer's disease will know when you're testing them. So, you know, it's always like, oh yeah, you're asking me what day it is again today. You know, I mean, it was not that they remember, but what was emotionally impactful with them was the stress of them knowing that you asked them a question that was a cognitive test. So it's just kind of like the perfect wheelchair. You can design a wheelchair perfectly. If the person says, that's not for me, they're not going to use it. So we really emphasized a lot about making it fun. So actually, let's see, this is let's see how we, this is now our little video. Yeah, so that video, May is a person that does have Alzheimer's disease, and she is a caregiver named Ruby. And part of what that video, the purpose of showing that video is to show she's having fun. She enjoys it. So I do think that we're working on I think we've done an okay job with making it fun. And at the end, you notice a couple of thanking May for being involved and thanking Ruby for being involved. And I actually want to throw in another couple of names of people that have helped us with this work. One is Dee Robinson. She's the administrator at One Kalakaua. Amazing, efficient person, and we worked with the residents at One Kalakaua with the app. I want to thank her a lot. And I think, has Pat Bemis ever given a talk here?
Not on HPGS, not
yeah.
yet.
Yeah, Pat is a retired nurse, and she's been doing really wonderful work with caregiving.
Yeah, Pat Bemis is actually the person who referred you to us to do this presentation. So definitely shout out to Pat Bemis. Thank you very much.
And then of course Mapuana, who Mapuana wanted to make sure that I got everything done on time. And Suzanne said, oh, don't worry, he'll get it done. But I think she was still a little worried. So, so at any rate, moving on to the next slide. So I think this is the slide you've seen before. I wanted to make a couple points though, is that the company I started is Memories Connect, but the app is actually called MemorC. And in answer to your question, Mapuana, you can't test it on the website, but the version that's in the Apple Store right now is free. So there's a couple of important things to know. Is you need to have an iPad or an iPhone, and it can't be extremely old. Like if it's more than 6 or 7 years old, it's not supported anymore. And the other thing you need to know is if you don't use your Apple apps a lot, you need to, before you log in, you need to remember that you need to have an Apple ID and a PIN number, or just using your thumb for the identification so you can download the app. But it's free at this point, and people who have an Apple account can play with it.
So if I have an Android phone, will it work?
Yeah. So the answer is no. And actually, there's a couple reasons for that. Probably the most important reason is it would cost us more money to do that as well. But there's actually another very important reason, is that the Apple framework actually is a lot more protected. And app developers have been telling me a fair amount that in the Android world, the apps don't have to meet certain criteria, and it's not as quality of an environment. I mean, I think that eventually, if we ever got to the point where, you know, we were a very successful product, we'd probably create an Android product as well, but not right now. So
just to be clear, it's for Apple products only? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. But I did want to, and it does work on a Mac as well. So now another question that you might think is kind of important is that you can use multiple devices. So let's just say that your loved one has an iPad, and you're far away. You're 1,000 or 3,000 miles away. You want to upload photos on the iPhone, you can do that, or you can do them via the website. The part of the website that you have to log into as a person that's actually downloaded the app. Okay. But I did want to get into some of the features of the app that we're really wanting to develop more. One is the creativity part of it. So what we're looking forward to is the role of music and people are able to choose their own music and recognize and do even a karaoke type of thing. The other thing is also artwork. And I think we all know that, and I 100% believe this, is that people's artistic abilities come out when that part of the brain is not as injured. And people are given the opportunity to express themselves without a lot of, you know, the stuff that inhibits our creativity. Excuse me. That's another thing we want to do in the future. It doesn't exist now. And the other thing that I'm very interested in is the ability to create stories. So if you can imagine Little Red Riding Hood, that story can be created in any kind of way. You can be all of a sudden, Little Red Riding Hood had blonde hair, or was attacked by a dragon or something like that. So you just make up your own creative stories. And there's actually apps out there where, just given a little bit of a framework, you can create your own creative story. And can you imagine as a loved one that you get a story that, oh, mom made this up. It's pretty funny, you know, or mom gave me this artwork or sent me this card. You know, I think that is it. You know, because the connection works both ways. It's not only for the person who has the Alzheimer's to feel connected with their family, getting things from their family, but it's the other way around, that the loved ones get something from the person with the Alzheimer's disease. I think that's important. The version that our latest version has a mailbox section where you can interact with somebody from far away every single day. And then there's also like I think I mentioned the part about having something for caregivers. Okay, where are we right now? I wanted to give you a little bit about our short history. The company was started in 2017. We started by doing a lot of customer discovery, just trying to figure out what made sense in developing a product. And then by the end of 2018, we actually put what's called a MVP. MVP in technology speak and startup speak is a minimal viable product. That's what's in the store now. That's the free product. It's kind of like the minimal version of what we really want to do, just to get it out there. And we were able to do that by the end of last year. In the meantime, I think an important task for us is to network. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk today. I do have a couple of requests for anybody who's kind of interested in helping us out. As one is just to go to our website. It's called memoriesconnect.com. And I think I'm actually pretty proud of our website. We have a fair number of blogs in there, and it kind of talks about our journey in more detail than I'm pointing out right here. And the other thing is for Facebook followers, just look us up on memoriesconnect.com, because actually Facebook, it does make a difference about how many likes you get. And if just, you know, if you just give us a like, we'd really appreciate that. So where are we right now is, I mentioned about getting the app for free as a download, but we'd actually much prefer if you subscribe. So the subscription is not even available right now. It's going to come out in about a month, and it's 99 cents a month. And it's not about making money, and it's not about getting a lot of people subscribing. It's more about us understanding the subscription model. And what we really hope for is to get about 50 subscribers right here in Hawaii. And what we'll do at that point, and Mapuana, hope you can help me with this, and Mina also, that when we get those subscribers, we're actually going to talk with them. It's more of this customer discovery. You know, what did you really love? What really got on your nerves? And just to make the product better and better, that's all. But at the same time, to understand the subscription model, because at the end of the year, we're really hoping to come up with something that we're really, you know, saying, this is the product that we think really can go somewhere. And then we'll, at that point, be doing more general marketing. And of course, we would also tell you that anybody who bought it at the 99-cent subscription, that you can stay at that price level forever. So,
So for the free version versus the subscription version, is there any difference with the app?
that's a great question. So there's going to be a lot of difference. So Apple is very good about the saying what makes you feel that it deserves a subscription. So you need to actually have updated content regularly, and every month. So the updated content might be new games and new in the caregiver section, new materials for the caregivers. I'm actually working with a woman who has a company called Dementiability, and she's from Canada. We're very excited about working together because she has been doing this work forever on why don't we do more cognitive stimulation for older people. So she's actually got a lot of the games figured out, and she's sending them to me. So hopefully we can get all those things working together so that there's continuously new material every month. And I think that part of the subscription, you know, it'll probably end up with some benefits to loved ones and caregivers and tracking data and stuff like that.
So I have the free app right now on my phone. So I've been playing with that, and it's actually quite fun. I find myself sitting in my office and I'm smiling all of a sudden because I'm looking at pictures of my family and my dogs and everything. And it is quite fun. But so the free one right now, I won't be getting any updates to that. It's just sort of something that you're kind of experimenting with to see how it works, or you want people to give you ideas.
Yeah. Yeah, you can actually still get the free one, and we're for the people who have the free one before we change to subscription, they will be able to continue to use it. If they convert to the newer version, they're going to have to go to subscription. But if they never get the newer version, they can stay with the free version and just continue playing with that. And frankly, you know, we'd like feedback from either one. We actually prefer feedback from the newer version because it's got more features.
One more question.
Mm-hmm.
I am currently not caring for someone with Alzheimer's or dementia, so would I still be eligible to be on your program?
Yeah, so Mapuana, you actually fill a really important role. I don't know if any of you have seen Mapuana, but Mapuana is a millennial. And there was a challenge for us that the people who are going to use this the most are of a couple of varieties. There's the direct to the user. So a lot of these would, if it's a spouse of a person with dementia, I think the likelihood of them ever buying a subscription is extremely low. And even for, you know, people who are in their 60s and up, buying a subscription is not something but a millennial is completely different. That's not a big deal, you know, this is great. You know, so we're trying to figure that out a little bit. And actually, so we're very interested in and so we've been going to tech fairs and things like that, and millennials are very interested. Not only because of the technology and the concept of using technology with older people, but, you know, as you'd expect, a lot of millennials have grandparents. Mm-hmm. And we've noticed that. And the other thing is that an app like this would be really very easy. It's, you know, we've been looking at millennials. They don't, one thing we found out is very few people look at instructions. And this is especially true of millennials. Nobody looks at instructions, oh, I'm just going to do it. And the app for millennials, it's incredibly easy for them because they've done so many apps. Of course, you know, of course this makes them, and they figure things out, right? There's no level of frustration. And so the millennials, of course, are also professional caregivers, right? In organization like Attention Plus. So yes, definitely we would, if you don't have actually a person that you're actually involved in who is, you'd consider an end user, but you're very interested in the app, we would love to have you.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I've worked at the care home for about 7 years, and I've actually noticed families, they come in to visit their person, and then maybe their loved one has to go to the bathroom, and the family's sitting on the couch. And let's say there's 2 millennial children sitting on the couch. They're both on their phones playing their games. So I think this app, if you want to talk about millennials, that's a great way to get them engaged with grandma.
Yeah, so we're going to talk some more about one app.
Perfect.
But you know, the other thing is that even my own auntie, who was in a memory care unit, I noticed that one of the caregivers was playing movies from YouTube for my auntie. It was kind of interesting on a really small phone, and it did draw my auntie's attention a little bit. I think it would have been better with a larger screen. But they were actually showing old Chinese movie clips. It was kind of fun. So, and of course we can do things like that too, right? So getting back to the point about is that if you get on our email list, we'll let you know when it's going to be available as a subscription. One thing I've learned is that coding is a lot of work, and it always seems to be that it takes longer than it's supposed to, at least from my perspective. But we should be able to get the subscription model in the store within a month or so. And it's going to, again, remember, it's going to be called MemorC. Here's our team. I think Holger is the developer, the coder, and I'm always a little frustrated. Why does this take so long? And he just says, you know, coding is, you know, everything has to be absolutely perfect. And please email us. We would love to get you on our email list. And we don't inundate people. We just we make a point of emailing about once a month just to tell people what's going on and then we would love to get suggestions too. So you can email me, Dr. Warren at memoriesconnect.com.
Great. So I have a question here asking what kind of people are you looking for? Is it more family caregivers or healthcare professionals?
Yeah, so I think we're really actually trying to figure that out exactly. I think eventually I would like it to go straight to families. But I think the path to that is not direct. So it's interesting, you know, in autism, that parents of children with autism get all these tools, and it's also a different generation, the parents, because they're millennials themselves, and they know how to look for tools, but where they get their input a lot of times is from people who are trained in care of autism. So what we're looking for is the indirect path for you, people such as you, Mapuana, who talk about caregiving training for Alzheimer's, is to get that conduit of that approach to saying, you know, this is an app that's worth trying. And then the other way is we're looking at home care agencies. And eventually, I think we're really hoping for that tipping point. And the tipping point is when people talk about it amongst themselves. That's just saying something good to get. And I also wanted to make a different point. You know, eventually, you know, I'm not in this for the money at all. It's more about kind of how do we get technology to a place where it's used by people who need it the most? Because, you know, millennials use technology as a tool. It's a helpful tool, but it's a nicety to have, like an easier way to get a telephone number, an easier way to find the path to somewhere. But what about a person with dementia who really needs that? You know, what about when the baby boomers age to the point that we're getting Alzheimer's disease and we want to live independently? You know, what about when we start getting lost? It would be nice to have technology adapted to a person who wants to continue living and help them live independently as long as possible, where as you're walking along says, you know, this is not the best way home. Or you're going to the store, you remember this is what you wanted to get. So this app doesn't do that, but the more important point is how do we adapt technology to make, you know, the things that we already can do, how do we adapt it to people who could really very much benefit them? And I really do think that older people, especially people with cognitive impairment, could massively get benefit from technology. And of course, I think all of us to a certain extent use our smartphones or whatever as our peripheral brains now. And I just want to see the point where, you know, it can be taken to the next stage. I'm not going to take it to that next stage, but this is just kind of a little step in that direction.
Another question is, can I have multiple accounts on one subscription?
The simple answer to that is yes.
Oh.
Yeah. So the current model does not adapt to that easily, but the subscription model will. So there's three roles that can be done by probably 2 or 3 people. The first role is the person who buys the app and sets it up. The second role is the one who interacts with the person using the app. That's basically a caregiver role. That's not always needed. And then the third role is the end user, the person. So getting back to your question, is either if the caregiver is pretty, you know, mildly tech savvy, any millennial could do it. They can just log in and out of different people because the way it's designed, it's encrypted. When you look at it, you'll see actually that we don't ask very personal information. We just ask for first names. We ask, you know, what year a person was born in, but we don't ask for last names and no information that's highly identifying. We don't ask that people put in, you know, if a son puts in a picture, he just puts his own name or his nickname in, but not the whole name. We don't ask for that. That's not needed. And it's not needed for the person who's got the Alzheimer's either. But this thing about security is really important to us. So we really avoid confidential information. And the other thing we do is everything's encrypted, you know, from one end to the other. So, but what that does mean is that when you have multiple users, you have to log out from one user and then log into another user.
So Jennifer is saying, I am the activities coordinator for a retirement facility here in Honolulu. How would you suggest we use the app here on our memory care floor?
Yeah, so we've actually, Jennifer, you email me and we can find out a little bit more about that, because we actually, you know, really very much want to work with people who are interested in helping us make it a better product. And you can email me. I do think that right now the product as it is designed, because we've been using it, it's really meant to be used one-on-one. And what we noticed is there's some things that have to be fixed. So there's some environment things like, you know, do you have working Wi-Fi in an area? Is your internet speed adequate so that you can upload photos? In most people's homes, that's in place. But and in one Kalakaua, it was in place too. But we noticed that in certain pockets of the building, you know, there were holes in the Wi-Fi. So there's those kinds of things to consider. There's also the whole thing that because it's a one-on-one activity, it's better in a relatively, you know, quiet environment. I think a modification in the future would be more as a group activity, and that would require, it's a whole different set of things. I don't know if you, but there are now touch monitors that are quite large. So you can get a 35-inch touch monitor and play it as a group activity. But, you know, that's an expense. So at this point, it's more designed for one-on-one, and it needs to be in, where you kind of are focused on one person and in a relatively quiet environment. Now, that's not a problem in most people's homes, but in some homes, you know, this whole thing about the internet, if a person's living with their children, you know, I would guess that most homes are pretty set up nowadays. But if it's just two older people who, you know, have a lot, don't even have internet in their house, that's going to be a problem. What makes it not a problem on the flip side is if you have an iPad with an internal cellular data hookup. But most people don't have that, so.
So would you recommend her facility to buy multiple iPads, or can they rotate one?
Well, I would, to be honest with you, I'd just say just start with one.
Okay.
Because, you know, you really want to make sure it's something that's worth the investment, so. So, you know, you have any questions or?
No, I just would like to say I can't wait to see where this goes.
Yeah.
It sounds really exciting. And, you know, working with folks in the home, I can see as long as they have access to the networking needs that this app has, then it could really make a difference in some families' lives.
Great.
I'm really excited about it.
Great. Thanks so much. Thanks for being in the room too.
Okay, so if anyone else has more questions, please send them in the chat box. And thank you to those who have been communicating. I know some people ask, can it be a little louder? We haven't started, I can't see anything. And even though I didn't reply to you, thank you for reaching out to me because it helped me to make adjustments along the way. So if you do have any more questions, please send in your questions on the chat box or take down Dr. Warren's email address, dr.warren@memoriesconnect.com, and check out his website at www.memoriesconnect.com. So he says right now the app is still free on the App Store. If you want to take a little poke around, you know, check it out before you decide. That is highly recommended. Otherwise, Dr. Warren, do you want to give a phone number or another way to reach you folks? Maybe
I think the email, and then the email is the best way because to be honest with you, nowadays we get so many of these crank phone calls that, you know, I don't think anybody answers their phone unless it's already ID'd. But yeah, I mean, we'll respond in the email right away. So yeah, and remember it's MemorC, not Memories Connect when you go to the Apple Store.
So in the App Store, it's MemorC, MEMOR, and the letter C.
Yeah.
MemorC in the App Store. All right. Well, is there anything else you'd like to say before we sign off?
No. Thanks for attending our session.
Yeah. So thank you, Dr. Wong. That was very informative, and I look forward to the future improvements, and good luck with your subscription process. That sounds awesome.
Thank you.
I really appreciated both of you being in the room because it just makes it much more of an interaction.
Talk about our July general membership meeting. So it'll take place on Thursday, July 18 at Abley Seminars. So that is on the Kapiolani Boulevard. I'm not exactly sure what the building's called, but if you Google Abley Seminars, the address will come up as 1585 Kapiolani Boulevard, and it is in Suite 1518. So that is again on Thursday, July 18th. We're going to have 3 presenters. Senator Sharon Moriwaki, Carolyn Katarao, and Christy Nishida will be there to present. So we have the Executive Office on Aging talking about what bills that relate to our kupuna, the update, what has passed, what is still in legislation, and just getting a general update on that. Kupuna are welcome to attend as well. And then Christy Nishida is going to be talking about the Kind to Kupuna business program or initiative that they've been starting out with the mayor's Age-Friendly Honolulu initiative. She's going to discuss the program that raises awareness on how to better support kupuna customers and their clients with physical and cognitive disabilities. So we really love if the kupuna, whether you're kupuna or not, anyone pretty much to attend our general membership meeting, you're welcome to come, listen to our great speakers, get some feedback.
Oh, wow.
You know, sometimes it
In the
is
bed, huh?
difficult to get our legislatures one-on-one. So please come on over, meet Senator Sharon, meet Executive Office on Aging's Carolyn Katarao, talk with Christy Nishida. We're gonna have people from different businesses as well. So if you wanna get some resources there, this is a great time to network. Right now, I do not see any more questions. A few people have said, thank you, Dr. Wong, for coming today and discussing the MemorC app. And I think that's all for today. So thank you all for tuning into the HPGS monthly webinar. Our next webinar will be on the last Thursday of June at 11:30 to 12:45 once again. So mark your calendars. I'll be sending you folks an invitation soon. Thank you. Have a great day.